Cloud security is hot right now, and AWS owns about 60% of the marketing. Today we're going to be talking about a book that's coming out that's going to give you practical skills to be able to understand AWS from an offensive perspective. Coming up. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Simply Cyber, the channel designed to help you make and take a cybersecurity career further, faster. I'm your host, Gerald Auger, and on this channel, we talk about cybersecurity as the industry, jobs, tools, labs, and individuals within the field. So if that's something that's interesting to you, consider checking out the other videos, maybe hitting subscribe. We push out videos every Monday. Now, if you want to jump around the video, I will be putting minute markers in the show description, so you can check that out and just jump to the parts that are particularly interesting or juicy to you. And be sure to stay tuned to the end for my one cool thing. So this week we're talking about AWS pen testing, specifically because a good friend of mine, John Helmuth, has a book coming out on December 4th called AWS Pen Testing, or penetration testing. And I got an early release copy, here it is, and I got to go through it, and I'm providing this as both a review and direction to help you kind of take advantage of cloud security and why you would want to. So before I get into John's book, which by the way, just on first blush is excellent, I want to point out that cloud security is a huge area. I've had a couple people ask me about this in the comments. Cloud is much different than traditional on-premise infrastructure. So forever, it's been, data center, server racks, air conditioning, lifted floor. That's fine. And when people joke and say the cloud is just a computer on someone else's data center, yes, that's true. But it's so short-minded and short-sighted, because really, if you look at the three big players, AWS, Azure, and Google Compute, AWS and Google Compute are really a different paradigm altogether on the way that you do computational infrastructure. Azure does offer services, but Azure is much more aligned to that traditional, off-site infrastructure. So you see a lot of organizations doing a lift and shift of their on-premise infrastructure into Azure and not so much into AWS and Google Compute. What you will see in Google Compute and AWS, or Google Cloud and AWS, is new businesses standing up, taking advantage of that elasticity, scaling up during heavy loads. A lot of tech companies are in that space. So like Netflix, for example, is a huge one, and they run exclusively in AWS. Also, obviously, Amazon, like the world's #1 shopping market, right? That all runs on AWS. So there is a huge opportunity there for you to learn how to secure and understand security in AWS. It has 60% of the share market, and it's not a transferable skill, right? So like, I've grown up in infrastructure, and I'm having to learn new skills to understand how to secure cloud as companies I work for are moving into the cloud, right? So having said all that, go check out AWS, and if you're interested in cloud security, there's a great possible opportunity. Now back to John's book, AWS Pen Testing. This book comes out December 4th, so if you're watching this after then, you can already pick it up. I think it's about $40, which is an absolute value. Pact Publishing is the one who did it. John is a very seasoned, very senior offensive security penetration tester, red teamer. He's got military background, and he's writing this book from his perspective exclusively. Now, it's focused on offensive security within the AWS space, which no one else is writing about right now. A couple things that I love about John's book, right? First of all, it's written as if John is talking to you. So you know how textbooks will be wicked dry and super, just like dry, and it sucks. John writes it in his own voice and in his own personality. Like I said, I'm friends with John. I talk to him quite often, and this is his voice. So first off, you're reading it as if you're having a beer with him and he's talking about penetration testing in AWS. Secondly, John provides real labs, real examples that you can execute yourself in AWS. You hear about S3 buckets compromise. He's got a whole section on that. APIs, which is really the way that like applications and businesses and stuff, that's APIs are like what is how integrations happen, right? Today, he has a whole chapter on APIs. He's got some really great labs in here. So like actual, step by step labs that explain everything and really show you how to execute attacks within the AWS space. And again, this isn't to teach you how to be a criminal. This is to teach you either A, how to be a professional penetration tester and help organizations understand where their weaknesses are, or B, be a great defensive practitioner and understand what the attack scope could be and what it looks like when the attack is executed. You could set up logging and see what those logs look like, or understand that when you do an S3 bucket permissions change, that there is no log file perhaps, right? So it's just an excellent read. The book itself is 12 chapters, excuse me, and he goes into, all the AWS stuff you'd want. Also, for those people who are not familiar with penetration testing, John actually spends a chapter talking about like the legality of it and how to go about doing it safely and within the confines of law so you don't get in trouble. So it's really an excellent book. And John's agreed to talk a little bit about the book. So like, let's jump into the conversation with John and get a little bit more perspective. Okay, let's go. And thanks for being here, John. Here's the book cover for your new book, AWS Penetration Testing. It looks great. I've read it. It's awesome. If you could kind of share with us, what really was your inspiration for writing this book?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So inspiration, what really came from just, where I started out in the community from knowing little to nothing and wanting to get into the community. And then also understanding that like there's a lot of security speed bumps, so to speak, with cloud computing. And I saw this as an opportunity to, one, give back to those who, where I was in the same shoes as they are now, where I was on the outside looking in and trying to understand as much information as I can. So this is a way to give back to them, saying, hey, here's a really good way to kind of like get your foot in the door or get your feet wet with penetration testing with the cloud. And then also, I just really wanted a way to kind of like help the community in a sense where it comes to cloud computing, because cloud computing keeps evolving and scaling pretty effectively, and by effectively I mean it's companies are buying cloud services such as AWS, which owns about 60% of the market, and yet we're still seeing breaches derived from cloud computing. And this was a great way to do a lot of research and dig around and see how a methodology could be formulated to create some kind of cohesive roadmap to how we can better secure ourselves in the cloud, or in this case, more directly with AWS through the stages of, some kind of cloud pen testing.
Yeah, and I agree 100% that cloud is different than traditional infrastructure, and there really isn't a lot of literature out there around penetration testing in that arena. So I definitely agree with you 100%. So who are you kind of targeting when you were writing the book? Who's the ideal audience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the ideal audience would be someone who is, has a couple years of experience in either cloud computing or in security engineering. However, it is set up really well to essentially take someone with little to no knowledge of both and guide you through the process of learning the fundamentals of both security and cloud computing. However, if you do have a couple years of experience in those fields, the flow of the book is going to go a lot more smoothly for you, just because of some of the concepts within the book.
Yeah, and I agree. I really liked the labs that you put in the book. They're interesting, and they're really tackling the focused aspect of like the S3 bucket and kind of how you could hack that and stuff like that. But you do spell it out there step by step. So really any level audience can follow along and get something from the book. At least that's how I kind of interpret it when I read it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, you know, it's one of those books where I was trying to formulate it to where, you know, anyone who's anyone could pick up the book, but also even if you were a professional working in the field already, you could, you know, help use that book to help you, you know, rethink your security process in the when it comes to AWS. So yeah, no, that's and I'm glad that you brought up S3 because S3 is, you know, I read an article last week about an S3 breach, and that's one of the biggest issues with AWS, and the book talks about, you know, S3 quite a bit. So
yeah. So what would you say? So if someone, you know, were to go buy your book and read it, kind of what would be the outcome, or what kind of expectations could someone have? You know, I gave my thoughts and perspective, but as the author, I'm curious what your intended expectations are for a potential reader.
So like the expectations really are, you know, what can you use from the book to help better yourself and then the clients that you work with or the organizations that you work with. You know, I'm a very big fan and advocate for using pen testing to not use it as like a hacker bag of all tricks and see what you can unleash on a corporation. I look at it more as an actual mature business process where you essentially just execute it within your operation, or I'm sorry, well, within the operations of your company to better help the way how you do things within your infrastructure, rather that be on a procedural, operational, or technical level. Pen testing is really just there to help, essentially, right? The outcome is to make you better than you were before. And with this book, I really wanted to kind of like set ground, so to speak, because like you said, there's not a lot of formal literature or even just books in general around pen testing or offensive security with the cloud. So I saw this as a way to kind of break ground within the industry and set those expectations of, hey, this is how you can actually mature your cloud computing security processes, as well as mature any kind of like sub techniques within your pen testing processes, so that they actually effectively and efficiently can assess, you know, companies' cloud infrastructure, rather that be, you know, a client that you're working for, or if you're an internal pen tester. So overall, the expectations is really just to set ground and mature the way how we assess and secure cloud infrastructure.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's a great text, and again, thank you for you know, putting the time and effort into writing such a good book. Well, just out of curiosity, as we kind of wrap it up here, what was your favorite part of, you know, writing a book is a massive endeavor, and I'm sure there's ups and downs, but you know, what was your favorite part of writing the book?
Man, well, one, it was a long process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It took me about, I want to say 10 months to from start to finish to write all of it. Overall, though, my favorite part, and maybe this seems a little cliche, is my favorite part of the book was I actually learned a lot about myself and about the subject that I was writing about. So in this case with AWS, you know, it was a lot of research, a lot of long nights burning the midnight oil, so to speak. But you know, as someone who enjoys learning, you know, just in general, it was really, really fun to actually see myself learn a new topic in the sense of, you know, AWS pen testing, and really formulate that into not just an idea, but, you know, into this case, it's actually something, it's a textbook. Or not a textbook, but it's a book that, you know, can be used to educate and entertain, you know, the field. So yeah, I guess the short answer to what I just said was the whole research and continuous learning portion of actually writing a book, is that, you know, it's just fun. Every day you learn something new.
Awesome. Well, the book is AWS Penetration Testing. Where can people get it, John?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now you can pick it up on Amazon.com. It's being shipped to at least within the US and in the UK and other parts around the world. And you can also you should be able to pick it up at pactpub.com, which is the publisher, Pact Publishing. So you can pick it up on their website, pactpub.com.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. And, appreciate what you've done for the community.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thanks, John. And again, consider checking out his book. It's an excellent, excellent read. And it's definitely good if you're looking to get into cloud computing, cloud security, especially within the AWS space. Okay. Now it's time for our one cool thing. So this week's one cool thing ties directly into today's topic. It's a podcast that's going to be coming out called Offensive Security Interviews, and it's hosted by one John Helmuth. This is a project that he started working on after his book was completed, and it's just an excellent podcast concept. I haven't heard any episodes yet, but it's an excellent podcast concept where he's talking to offensive security practitioners in cybersecurity and getting their war stories, getting their perspective, helping us understand what the frontline workers are seeing, feeling, shifts in the industry, etc. So if you're interested in the offensive security space, ethical hacking, Mr. Robot, red team, pen testing, whatever you want to call it, this is a podcast that you seriously want to check out, okay? So thanks a lot to John for all the hard work he does for the community. We really appreciate it. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. So until next time, stay secure.